behavior at the psychological level, you look at general cognitive ability and you look at personality. Those are very good, powerful, reliable, valid predictors of individual difference in such things as opinion. And the biggest predictor of liberal left belief is trait openness, which is the creativity dimension. And which is why, for example, leftist ideas are rife in places like Hollywood. But what's so bloody perverse about this is that people who are high in openness, first of all they really have to offer is the fact that they can think 10 different things at the same time. That freedom of movement, that's especially true with regards to artists. That's all they have. And then what you see on the left is this stifling orthodoxy that makes art dull and predictable. It reduces everything to these 10 axioms, and that seems to fly completely in the face of what open people, creative people, would truly want. And so I'm still puzzling through that. I can't understand yet. See, it's partly that the open people don't want barriers to information flow. And so when they see conservatives putting up barriers of any type, even barriers of category, that destabilizes them because the open types capitalize on free information flow. But perversely, that rejection of the boundaries that conservatives put up has led to a situation where, well, you didn't want any boundaries, and now all you've got are boundaries around what you can say and think and do. And I can't see how that can sustain itself for any length of time on the artistic front because, well, it'll do the whole enterprise in, but it's got to just stifle the hell out of creative producers.
Yeah, and I felt that in my time working in the documentary film world. I would attend the conferences, I would go to the festivals, I would participate in the industry, and looking around, and it's like, these people, no one says anything new. The festival programmers are pure ideology. You look at the catalog of films for any kind of A-list film festival in the last 10 years, and it looks like a social justice syllabus. It's, the kind of transgender basket weavers of Madagascar. I mean, it's like these things that are so niche, so absurd, and then they're only propped up because, again, these are artificial economies. You look at these Sundance award-winning films. They have all the prestige, they win the institutional game, but then you put them on the marketplace, you look at like an Amazon film rentals, they have like 3 reviews at 2 stars, nobody's watching this stuff, nobody cares, it has no actual organic audience. And then one of the big distinctions that I see is it's this kind of artificial culture versus a true organic culture. And we've created an artificial culture that is high in openness maybe, but really high in intellectualism and verbal ability. And Machiavelli had the distinction. He had 2 archetypes. There's the lion and the fox. The fox is highly intelligent, adaptable, open, verbally very proficient. The lion is strong, tough, setting standards, kind of the strong, quiet type. And I think that it's kind of a proxy maybe for left and right. But the conservative movement needs people that have the more kind of fox attributes as well. Because look, we're in a postmodern world. We're in an information economy. You have to be able to do the ideological fights with a sense of skill, with a sense of sophistication, with a sense of narrative. And so that's what I think we need. We need folks like that also recognize the value of the kind of the lion mindset, which is saying we want to have standards, we want to have institutions, we want to transmit values from one generation to the next. We want to appeal to human universals. We want to respect our past and our culture. But we also have to kind of do battle in the world as it exists today. And conservatives have been really, frankly, awful at that. They thought for many years, oh, well, we're just going to say, wave the flag and say America is great. That's not enough. We actually have to engage. We have to outflank these folks.
Conservatives could leave it implicit. And a lot of what conservatism is about is what's implicit, right? And because the conservative mantra, in some sense, is rely on what's implicit. Rely on what everyone already accepts as self-evident and of value. The problem now is that all of that is up for question, including, for example, things as fundamental as what constitutes a woman and a man. And so it means the conservatives have to make their ethos explicit, and they have to start putting it forward as a vision. And that's very hard for conservatives because, by and large, they're not visionary. Because the visionary types are the open types. Now, you've seen this weird transgressive reversal on that front. Like, one of the first things that really struck me as indicative of how upside down everything was, well, first of all, Rush Limbaugh. When I first encountered him like 25 years ago, I thought, this guy's a comedian. And he was a comedian. And people took him dead seriously, but he was a comedian. He was a satirist. And I thought, how the hell did the conservatives get the satirist? That's a very strange thing. And he was unbelievably influential. And then in more recent years, you have these unbelievably strange occurrences like the Babylon Bee. It's like, okay, let me get this right. You're conservative, traditionalist, evangelical Christian, and you're doing satire? It's like, where the hell are we? Because we're not in any world I understand. But I think it is an indication of the need. Well, and you see the Daily Wire Plus doing something like this too, right? They're starting to get interested in the cultural milieu, which is not the normal place that conservatives play, because that's where the artists are, and they tend to be on the left. And so this is calling for a real radical reshaping even of how we conceptualize the political landscape at as level as fundamental as that of temperament itself.
It's true, but at the same time, I think that, Aristophanes, the Greek satirist, the Greek humorist, was a conservative, right? He was making fun of the kind of very abstract folks. He was making fun of the philosophers of the time, kind of lampooning them. So there is a tradition, but I think since the 1960s, we've become so used to this idea that art can only be left-wing, free speech can only be left-wing, freedom can only be a left-wing value. But it's really not the case historically, and I think it's certainly not the case now. Actually, they've taken all of those values and they've folded them in on themselves. And so we have this euphemistic culture, whether it's a kind of left-wing conception of freedom or left-wing conception of diversity and inclusion. You can go on down the line and you say, hey, wait a minute. You're not actually meaning what you say you mean. All of these things have to be lampooned, they have to be exposed, they have to be ridiculed. And that's why I think something like the Babylon Bee is successful. I think you have more comedians, actually the kind of most exciting and dynamic comedians of our time may not be conservatives, but they're certainly lampooning that kind of left-wing orthodoxy. And so we're seeing the shift now, and it's because the left has institutional control. Look, government agencies, universities, K through 12 schools, prestige media organizations. If you understand the culture, and I think I've documented this in my reporting over the last few years, this is pure left-wing ideology. It's the kind of identity politics. It's the Angela Davis style of activism. It's kind of the critical theory style of assessing society from Marcuse and others. This is the establishment. And so as the kind of